go ahead and get started with the basics, and then the Duluth specific things will be at the end. So hopefully they'll be able to catch those. Welcome to Coxing 103 Racing Basics, specifically the Duluth prep. This is for both coxing and bowing. We just call it coxing because a lot of the stuff is applicable to both. And often the bow person takes on the role of what a coxswain would do in organizing the boats that they're part of during race weekend. So we might use those words interchangeably. There are specific things that are to cox boats, but most of the stuff, if you're a bow person, are is definitely applicable. And if you have any questions about that, please let us know. Okie dokie, we'll go ahead and get started. So anytime that you are racing, and I know Jen sent out an email earlier today or the day before, it's worth having your own rowing supplies bag. Coxswains call them the coxswain bag, but if you're a rower and you are going away from your boathouse where you need to make sure that you have tools, this is a good sort of go bag to make sure that you have available. 100% you need wrenches and your own set, specifically 2 of each wrench, because 1 wrench by itself isn't very helpful. You'll need 7/16 and 10 millimeters. We have both types of boats, metric and imperial. So make sure that you've got those. I also highly recommend putting your name on them. Personally, I have just an address label wrapped around and then sealed with shipping tape. And that way, if you lend them to somebody, you are able to get them back. I also like putting a carabiner around the end of mine to keep the sets together so that I don't drop one or something like that. Electrical tape is also a really great tool to have on you at all times, whether it's you're bowing a boat and you're checking the steering and you want to make sure that you know where straight is, all the way to taping down a steering cord or fixing a loose wire or something like that. Coxswain tool, I'd say that's not necessary. It's a nice to have. This right here is one of the types of coxswain tools. Vespoly also makes another one, and basically it's a multi-purpose tool that has a lot of these things in there. An adjustable crescent wrench. This one I would say specifically is super nice to have, specifically when boats are being transported, because often when riggers are taken on and off, the riggers are pushed together and or loosened, and the top nut gets loose, and that top nut cannot be adjusted by the wrenches. It has to be with an adjustable crescent wrench because it's a much bigger size than 7/16 or 10 millimeters. So those often come loose in travel. So make sure to grab one of those. And then extra hardware. Often I'd say, unless you're a coxswain, don't worry about this. The club brings all of this in the actual toolbox that comes along, and if you need any extra stuff, this is helpful. But if you want to be extra prepared, having a couple of extras of all of these are really great, because if someone did not tighten everything and it falls off on the water, you have a backup, which is really nice.
Yes, we are bringing 3 awesome. Of the club cox bags like this as well. They're currently in my car, but they will be at the trailer. So if you are coxing or bowing, you can have that.
Awesome. And lastly, zip ties, band-aids, tape, all of those are super helpful. If you have a bag that you bring with you in the boat, those are always super helpful to have on hand. Okie dokie. Calls that you need to know for race day. Hopefully you have been working with your coaches on this, specifically newer rowers. There are certain things that you call on race day that you don't call on any other day. Specifically safety check, which is when you are going to launch, you walk down to the dock and you have one half of the boat go down to waist, and basically you're canting the boat to the side so that way the official can check and make sure that the heel ties are connected. The heel tie is the tie that connects the heel of the shoe to the boat. The reason why it's there is if the boat were to flip over, that heel tie ensures that as you're trying to pull your foot out of the shoe, it can actually pull out instead of getting stuck there. So it's a safety thing. They also check the bow ball. So if you haven't practiced that or you have questions about that, please reach out to your coach and they can walk you through it. And then lastly, backing into a stake boat. Again, something that you never do except on a race day. So make sure that you are aware of that. I believe Anne has a video if you need some help there as well.
I do. If you want it, just let me know. I'll find it and I'll send it out tomorrow morning. My computer is completely dead right now, so I'm on my phone. And it's allowed to do that from a laptop. But also, you're only going to be backing into the stake boat if you are rowing an open race in Duluth. So if you're rowing a 2,000 meter, masters races are only 1,000 meters. And you will be starting then at the halfway point on the race course, and that will be a floating quick start usually.
There's yeah, we can hear you. Okie dokie. I'm going to assume you didn't, there wasn't a question there, but if there was, feel free to come off mute.
Yes.
Okay. Race day safety. So these are things that can happen. They don't happen very often, but we like to make sure that you are aware of them just in case. Skeg loss. So you're going to be on a body of water that you are not normally on. Depending on water levels and recent storms and things like that, there are things that are in the water that you might not know about that cause you to lose a skeg. And the skeg is that big, long, mostly plastic piece on the bottom of the boat that causes it to go semi-straight. If you lose that, you're not going to have very much control at all of your steering. And it'll be very, very obvious. If that is the case, you should not race. You should raise your hand, make sure that official knows, and they will safely get you back to the dock. But do not keep racing, or don't try to race if you lose a skeg. It's not worth it, just from a pure safety perspective. Rower loss is also something, especially if you've got a newer crew and you're doing your high tens straight out of the gates. There's a lot of momentum that comes with that, and there are things called ejector crabs, which are what is on the right hand side in that picture, that do force people to fall out of the boat. It happens rarely, but it does happen. If that does, stop immediately. Make sure the official knows, and the coaches and the officials will let you know what to do in order to retrieve that rower. And then lastly, oar loss. This can either be from a collision or a popped oar lock, which can happen, hopefully rarely. If you do lose an oar and an oar is out of commission, or a rower is out of commission for whatever reason, make sure that you stop them immediately, communicate to the official that you'll no longer be proceeding, and then consider that pair to be out of commission if you're in a sweep boat. So if you're in a 4 and 8, let's say bow seat lost their oar or popped out, whatever, bow pair will be out, and they won't be rowing for the rest of that row. If you're in a sculling boat, obviously that person would be out. Okay, any questions there? Okay, general racing basics, pre-race preparation. Preparation prevents poor performance. The club does a really nice job at communicating a lot of information to you, but it is a lot of information. Often you are rowing multiple lineups, and so you need to make sure that you are aware of not only what lineups are you in, but what event number those are and what time those are. As of today, and the latest email that Jen sent out, there are heats and times for each event and each race. Please log on to Regatta Master and make sure that you know for each race that you're in what event is it. So specifically, let's say Masters Women's Double, that I'm going to make up a number, event 14, which is the event number. Each type of race is an event, and then what race number or what flight number. So often there are going to be multiple flights because it's a popular regatta. Are you flight A, flight B, flight C? Because if you line up with the wrong flight, you're going to be in somebody else's spot, and you're going to cause the whole thing to be backed up. So make sure you know the event name, the event number, which flight you're in, and often that flight will have a race number attached to it, a fully sequential list from the first race of the day all the way to the end.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The official race packet, the race numbers other than like events 1 and 2 are different than what is in Regatta Master. So just be aware of that when you're looking. Our club has all of our equipment and everything allocated by the numbers in the official race packet, which is the PDF document. Regatta Master is different because it is allowing for heats and all that stuff.
Okay.
Also, I found the links to my videos on how to back. I posted them in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you are coxing or bowing a boat, usually it falls on you to be able to make sure that you are organizing your boat and getting everybody where they need to be and at what time. If you don't already, make sure that you have their contact information, either start a group text or a WhatsApp thread so that they know that that's the communication channel in order to contact people. And it's a centralized form of communication. Make sure that ahead of time, if you have been practicing with these people, understand what calls they like, what do they not want to hear. Often that might be different in practice than what they want to hear on race day, especially if they are more of a tenured rower. The other thing that you'll want to make sure to get in addition to that is your basic warm-up plan and your race plan from your coach if you don't already have one. So your warm-up is, you're not going to have enough time to do a normal warm-up usually compared to what you would normally do in practice. You're going to have a little bit more intensity on the water, either to get down to the start, or let's say if you're doing a master's race, which is only 1,000, you're only going to have 1,000 meters basically to warm up. So make sure that your boat knows that they need to be warming up on land and be warm when they get hands-on, because they're not going to get to do their 20 strokes each out of 22, 24, 26, 28, and then their 6 sets of starts and all of that. It is going to be quick, and you need to be warmed up going into it and set the expectation so no one is caught off guard.
Mm-hmm.
Timeline. If you are unsure of the timeline, please talk to your coach and make sure that you have an understanding there. Specifically with Duluth, because it is on a little peninsula, you will hopefully be there all day, just because it's a pain getting on and off. And also parking takes a really long time to walk from where you park, especially if you're not there at the crack of dawn. So make sure that not only do you say this is when you need to be at the trailer. Usually I'd say that is 2 hours prior to the race time minimum. But what time do you need to park? I would say for this regatta, I'd say do an extra 30 minutes just to make sure that you're able to find a spot, walk to the trailer or walk to the tent, drop your stuff, and then walk over to the trailer, use the bathroom, that type of stuff. Having hands on, we'll probably get direction from the coaches and coxswains meeting, which will be tomorrow at 7:30, and we'll disseminate this broadly to the club. But usually the call is about 30 minutes prior to launch. For masters races specifically that are going to be 1Ks, I would not launch 30 minutes ahead of time, or else you're going to be stuck in a little bitty traffic pattern. It's not worth it. If you're doing a 2K, maybe it's worth it. But I would probably do closer to 20 minutes in order to make sure you're not stuck on the water waiting. Prior to that launch, make sure that you have hands on, and my boats, I always tell them when is like the drop dead, you don't leave the boat time. So let's say if my first race is at 9 a.m., I want to launch at 8:40. No one leaves the boat from 8:30 or before. That means like you're done with the restroom, you're done getting your hat, you're done putting sunscreen on, you're done texting your mom that you're about to race. Like everything is done. You do not leave my sight, because this is a big, big race. And if you're going to launch at 8:40 and you don't tell people and make sure that they're actually there and not wandering away, it's going to be 8:45 and you're not going to know where Anne went. And then you're trying to find Anne, and Anne doesn't have her phone because she's rowing. And like, just make sure that you have hands on and like the final call of this is when you don't leave the boat. Equipment, make sure that you bring your own watch, specifically a watch, not a smartphone. They will also share what regatta time will be the morning of, so that way if your watch runs fast or slow, you know how far off it is. It looks like it's going to be absolutely beautiful weather, 75, low of 54, nice sunny. So I don't think we're going to need a raincoat, but what I would recommend, it is going to be sunny. And if we're going to be out there all day, long sleeve UV shirt, even if it's just a long sleeve shirt, it's really not that hot and it protects your skin so much. Sun hats, instead of just like a normal racing hat, huge, keeps the sun off your neck. And if you're racing multiple times, it would be amazing. It's so amazing to have that. I can tell you, I switched over about 3 or 4 years ago to like completely covering my body, and the amount of energy it saves is just remarkable. So highly recommend that. We also have the boating and Cox box assignments. Thank you, Tara, for putting all that together. Make sure that you know what boat you're going to be in, what the last race that boat is coming from is, because the last thing you want is you getting there and let's say I'm going to row the Bill Spirit and I get there my 45 minutes in advance or whatever, and the Bill Spirit isn't there and I'm freaking out because where's my boat? Oh my God, I don't know where my boat is. Knowing if I would have checked the list, I would know that my boat is going to be coming right off the water. And as soon as they come back, I need to like make sure that my boat mates get their feet set and we're basically going to launch immediately. So knowing that, or at the beginning of the day, are you the first one to row that boat? Because depending, you might want to make sure, I mean, anytime you should do this, but if you're the first one rowing the boat, you specifically want to make sure every single nut and bolt is double checked, because that boat was just put together. And you might have put it together, and we've got a lot of newer rowers that are going to this regatta, and they might not have tightened it as much, or they might have missed something. And so just make sure that you double check your boat specifically if you're the first one to row it. And then lastly, if you are coxing, or I guess next to last, if you are coxing, make sure not only who you are getting the cox box from, but who you're going to be passing it to. And that cox box does not hit the ground unless you talk to a regatta manager and you're like, regatta manager, do you see this cox box? This goes to so-and-so and I cannot find them. I cannot contact them. And I am going to set it in your presence and make sure that a regatta manager knows that. Otherwise they get left on a trailer or left in a chair and we can't find them. And it's super important that we have them, because we're going to be racing a lot this weekend.
Yeah, that's true. And to that point, they're doing the final boat or equipment allocation as we speak. The Little Poppy trailer just got loaded 45 minutes ago. And I am going to be one of the regatta managers in the morning. So, yep. So please feel free to find me if you have any questions about any of this stuff. And a representative from our club will be at the coaches and Coxing meeting tomorrow night if you can't make it. So all regatta managers for the morning, and there's like 5 of us, will be at the trailer between 6:30 and 7 a.m. And we will have all of that information for you regarding boats and oars and who's rowing what before and after you, if you don't know that yet.
Yes.
So if you don't know yet, don't freak out.
Yeah.
It will all come clear Saturday morning.
Yes. And oars specifically, I know that there was a question the other day about, well, I normally use this set of oars and my length is normally this. Unfortunately, this is literally, we're taking every boat out of the house. We're taking every oar we own.
They are trying this time.
They're trying, but it is one of the situations where we have to work together, and you get what you get and you don't throw a fit type of mentality. And just be thankful that we have nice equipment, both oars and boats, to be able to row, and that you have what you need in order to race. Because that is a huge effort that goes into trying to make that happen. But be okay if you don't get what you normally get.
Yes.
Okay, any questions there? Okay, day of race prep. Attend the coaches and coxswains meeting if you can. Like Ann said, that's on Friday night. I know a lot of people are going on up the morning of or aren't going to get in until after that. So the regatta managers will be able to catch you up if you need to. The biggest thing is day of race, crew management and crew communication. Make sure that you've got that text thread or that WhatsApp thread started. I will probably do all of mine tomorrow and get them started so that I've got them ready to go. And make sure that you give them the timeline. Our first race is at 9 a.m. We are race number blah, blah, blah. We are lane blah, blah, blah. We are flight whatever, so that they know. And if you forget, they've got it there. And also, this is when you need to be at the race course. This is when we're going to have hands-on. This is like final call. This is when we're launching, so that there's no miscommunication with people. This is the point where you be a micromanager and you over communicate to ensure that everyone is on the same page. And then, like we said, check your equipment prior to launching. Nuts and bolts, obviously, top nuts, like I said, with that crescent wrench. Check your shoes to make sure that everything is properly tied, that you've got the heel ties. Oarlocks and spacers are properly working and all spacers are present. And steering is a big one if you are bowing a boat, with boats being rigged and de-rigged and on a trailer and handled a lot. Steering often gets messed up during travel. So even if you're like, oh, this boat always steers well, make sure you check it, because the worst is when you're halfway up to the start line and realize that it's off. Okay. Gonna keep rolling. Race day launching. So if there's going to be plenty of people there, try to get somebody to come with you to take your shoes and watch the stern. There aren't as many trees at this course, which is nice. But if I were you, and if this is, especially if you haven't raced this course before, or it's been a couple of years, before you even launch, walk down the path that you're going to take with the boat so that you know what types of obstacles are in the way, where there are random holes, where there's a step down, that type of stuff. Because it's a lot easier to do that when you're not carrying a heavy boat than it is when you're doing it for the first time and also trying to manage all of that stuff.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go.
Okay. Oh, I was just going to say, and so this race course is very narrow because we're on the peninsula. There is going to be a ton of boat maneuvering. You will be up and over heads. You will be at low heads. You will be on shoulders. It's going to be crazy. You're going to get into a couple crazy thread the needle situations. There's also not a whole lot of like green real estate for boats to be on slings. So a lot of our boats, specifically because we are the largest club at this regatta, will have to go back to the trailer. Even if they are not rigged, or even if they stay rigged, they still might be resting on the trailer just so that they're out of the way. And that's another thing the race managers will help you coordinate. But yeah, it's a great idea to definitely check it out ahead of time, especially if you don't race till later and you're there early to get your parking spot. So
and if you're coxing and especially if you're bowing, if you have a couple of friends that can come with you and stand at the bow ball and or at the stern to help yell at people and say, hey, boat coming through, that type of stuff, super, super helpful, both for your safety and the boat safety. The other thing is this dock is very holy, if that makes sense. We have a really, really nice, lots of gaps in this dock, and we've had people go to the emergency room because they hit and then with an ankle and turn it and stuff. And so make sure you let your crews know. Be careful as you're entering and exiting the dock, and also as you walk, that dock is not fully level. So just be aware.
And that is provided.
Oh, yes.
That I was just to say, most likely, given the weather predictions, we will be launching from the dock.
Yes.
However, there is a possibility if the wind picks up, we could be rowing on Lake Superior. Which is a whole nother kettle of fish because we get to carry the boats up over a sand dune down to the beach and then do a wet launch. But the last 4 or 5 of these have been on the protected harbor side, which has been great. So we're going to manifest that happens again this time.
And we'll talk through that if that happens at the
Yes.
end, how that works. As always, be loud, be aware, and be quick on the dock. Just like, I mean, it's like practice on steroids. There's going to be an entire line of boats. We've got multiple heats for a lot of these events. So make sure that you're super, super quick. And you might be launching in an opposite direction than you normally would. I forget exactly how this is, but like your bow might not always be to the left, depending on where you are. Just be aware that things might feel different. So make sure and double check that all ports are ports, all starboards are starboards, that the oar locks are facing the normal way, because people are in a rush. And that's when mistakes happen. So just be specific and nitpicky, and review that as the cox or the bow prior to shoving off. Get away from the dock before you stop. Don't just shove and stop. Row away 100, 250 meters before people fully tie in. I get people in the boat, we shove, we row away, feet out, then we tie in, because there's literally a line of 8 boats waiting behind you, and we don't need to do the whole like count off from bow when you're ready, because we just need to get off. That's where you follow the warm up, and you want to channel that nice calm feeling. Take a look around, see are there boats around you that are the same class. So if I'm a 4, are there lots of 4s around me, or am I the only 4? Is usually that means that if I'm the only 4, I either launched really late or I launched really early. You want to try to stay with the group of boats that you're with. So just be aware of who's surrounding with you. And if you're super ahead or super behind, try to find those like you. And then be in the starting area no later than 5 minutes before your posted race time. That allows you to be ready, so that when they are ready for the next group to go into the starting docks, they will call you in, and you will have plenty of time to lock into the starting docks or to get alignment on the floating start. And then try to line up in order if possible. And one of the tricks for that, so if you are the starting official looking down the course, the lanes will always be 1 to, let's say 8. I think it's 6 here, but like 1 to, okay, so 1 to 7 left to right. So as you're warming up on this course, lane 1's going to be closest to you. So if you are lane 1 and you're the closest to the race course, and they're like, okay, you may now enter the race course, don't go onto the race course, because everyone's going to have to go around you. Then be thoughtful and let 7 and 6 and 5 and 4 and 3 go, and stay out of their way, because they've got a much longer way to go and you don't want to get in their way. And then once you get there, we'll talk about getting into the launch dock or the starting dock, but you want to make sure that you have a final oar lock and shoe nut check prior to entering, to make sure that everything is tight, so that they don't have to worry about that once they're locked up.
Yep.
Hey, Colby.
And we will have, oh, go ahead. Question?
Sorry, this is Tim. Is there any chance you have a slide that has that picture so that you could actually point to what you're
Yes.
describing?
Yes.
That'd be
We will
really
cover it at the
helpful
end.
to visualize. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yes.
And I will say, because I was looking at Regatta Master this afternoon, if there are fewer than 7 boats, they don't put anybody in lane 1 or lane 6. They try to keep you in lanes 2 through 5, because that way you're less likely, especially if we're on the harbor side, you're less likely to get wave reverberation off of the shore, and you're much more likely to have like a smooth set boat and the best course you can possibly have. So that's something to keep in mind. So if you're like, there's 5 boats in the race and we're bow 2, don't be looking for bow 1.
Right.
Because bow 2 is the farthest out they will go.
Yeah. But if you did your proper preparation, you would know that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. On the water communication. So official communication, always listen for the officials. And if your boat is talking, have them be quiet. Because often they're talking to you because they need you to do something. So anytime they're talking to you, if you are able, if they're like, Minneapolis, please move ahead, wave if you can to let them know I heard you, and then do the thing. Obviously, if you're in the middle of rowing, and you're sweeping or you're sculling, should I say, and you're bowing, you're not going to be able to do that. But
Maybe
try
just
to
give them a
nod
very,
or
big head
big
nod.
head wave, something, or a head nod. Let them know that you heard them. If you didn't hear them, which is very, very possible, say, I'm sorry, can you repeat that? Or what did you say? Or something like that to make sure you know what they said. Because often it might be something counterintuitive to what you think, like, oh, stop, or let this boat pass you, or things that you wouldn't just know. And then make sure that you talk with other coxswains and bows. So if, let's say, I'm in that 4 race and I've got multiple 4s around me, and this 4 is getting really close to me, I'm going to make sure to talk to that other boat and let them know, hey, I need a little bit more room. I'm getting close to shore here. Or if I'm running late because I was hot seating or something, hey, can I pass you? I need to hustle up to the start. Just because they're from different clubs does not mean that you can't talk to each other. Communication, super, super helpful on the water. If you are in a cox boat specifically, you have the benefit of having eyes facing in both directions. So if you are in a bow, or if you're in a 4, you are facing forward, and your bow seat or your set of eyes behind you. So if a boat is coming up on you, there's no way that you're going to be able to see that. Make sure that your bow seat has the expectation to let you know if there's anything that you should be aware of from boats coming up on you, officials talking to you, whatever that is that you might not be aware of. Same thing in an 8. If you're facing forward, your stroke seat is facing backwards. It's their job to make sure that if anything is coming up behind you that you're not aware of, that they make you aware of that.
And I will.
Yeah.
Okay. And with Duluth, if we're on the harbor side, they claim it is a buoyed course, but all that means is there are buoys marking the perimeter of the course and the finish line. There are not lanes like there were at Minneapolis Sprints. So you're definitely going to be wanting to watch the official in the safety launch behind your boat, because they will be flagging you to move to port or move to starboard so that you are not interfering with the other boats in your race. So, and typically they have flags, so you don't have to hear them. You can just look. And so if you see somebody waving at you and pointing very vehemently in one direction, that's probably because they need you to move that way.
Yeah. And if someone's about to hit you, don't let them hit you. Like, maneuver out of the way. Just because it's a race does not mean you want to put your crew or the boat in a safety concern. If you do get hit and it was not your fault, at the end you can raise your hand and file a complaint, and then they'll deal with that off the water. But it is very common in Duluth to see boat paths go like this. So be aware, especially if the water is wavy. Be aware that that is something that is very, very realistic. The other thing is boat etiquette. You've got to be like on it, and this is not the time to be having conversations about what you're having for lunch or the last night's episode of The Bachelor. Like, this is, you need to be fully focused, and you need to not have side conversations unless it's like, okay, we did that start, what do we want to improve on? Like, that's a valid conversation. Other than that, focus needs to be in the boat, internal, quiet, because there's a lot going on around you and you need to be able to hear that and communicate.
Yep.
So Colby,
Okay.
when it comes to those, like, the boat traffic, are they directing you into like pseudo lanes? So you'd expect basically everybody remains within their certain order. It's not actually going to be crossing paths or anything?
No,
Okay.
you could cross paths.
Yeah. There are not buoys like there were at the Sprints.
Yeah. So this is the picture of the course. So the peninsula is this middle line. This is the land that in between these two big rectangles is the peninsula that we'll be going off of. The Duluth Rowing Club is right here. The trailer will probably be right around here. We'll launch here. and you will go down this very narrow, and it will be narrow. There will be a buoy line here marking the outside of lane 1. You'll go down to the start, and lane 1 will be to your left. And then if you are doing a 2K, you'll loop back, you'll loop in front, and you'll lock into the starting blocks, and we'll show how to do that. If you're doing a 1K, you'll come to this halfway point. They'll tell you when to turn, and then you will start from this 1K point. There, like Ann said, there are only buoys on the outside of lane 1 and the outside of lane 7. Other than that, it's a free for all. And the water is usually crap, which means it's hard to keep a straight line. And I can tell you, if you're able to effectively keep a straight line, that is a strong advantage in this race. And it is, I would say almost 75% of the races that I've raced in Duluth, boats are crossing paths.
Yeah.
They won't mess with you unless it's a safety concern for another boat.
Yeah.
Okay. And then in this picture, the lane that's closest to that path that you would row up on, that's lane 1, and
Correct.
lane
Yes.
7 is the furthest. Okay.
Yes.
Is
So
it-
this
is
is
there
the
any-
start.
Is there anything that's a point, any sort of landmark that you can look out as a bow that you could see?
From if you're doing the 2K, no. If you're doing a 1K, there is this massive triangular yellowish orangish buoy that marks the finish. If you're starting at the 1K, you can vaguely see it. If you're starting at the 2K, you just point to that horizon and hope for the best.
So,
Yeah.
but you're describing it as a cox looking forward, as a bow looking backwards.
As a bow looking backwards, you can see, if you're doing the 1K, you can see the stake boats.
Yeah.
That would be a great point to keep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Try to stay in line with the stake boat. And if you're seeing that you started in lane 1 and you're now in lined up with lane 4's stake boat, you're probably off. So normally in a sprint race, you wouldn't turn around and look because you can tell if you're in the lane. This one, you do want to turn around and look because you are probably going to be off course at some point.
Yeah.
And you want to make sure that you are correcting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a great adventure, Tim. You're going to do fine.
Can't wait.
Okay, loading into starting blocks. Like we said, Ann's got a video for this that she posted in the chat and can send out afterwards. But this is something, hopefully you've already practiced it. Very, very high level. You want to slowly come across with a pair, maybe half your boat, depending, 0 pressure. And you want to stop before your bow gets into your lane, because as soon as you stop, it's not like it's not like an immediate stop. You're going to drift, right? So if you stop when you're halfway through your lane, you're going to drift right past your lane. So stop before you get to your lane. If you need to, take another couple taps. And the goal is that you've stopped your momentum so that you're at a T position with your lane. Here's your lane. Here's your boat. Boo, 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 boo. And I've stopped right here in a T. Then you would have horseback, starboard row, whichever it is, at that situation where you would straighten out just like a river turn. Once you are there, then you have your stern pair or your stern person. And I would say it's very, very important to have them do this together. Make sure that they know that, because if one person's doing it differently, you're going to like knock yourself off the corner. Make sure that they slowly back it in and control the pressure to back it into this person so that the tail touches them. Once you are locked on, then you get to relax just a little bit, but you need to get your point. Often you did not perfectly back in, or the waves are pushing you or whatever. Once you're locked in, you cannot take strokes to pull you forward, a normal tapping stroke, or else it's going to pull you out of their hands. So you have to do, and I always forget the name of it, but basically you have to, in a sweep boat, you have to pass the oar up and basically put the oar up against the body of the boat and do taps where it's basically almost like a side motor.
Where you have 2 scull bow or 3 scull 2.
Yeah. I just say pass
One
your
of the-
oar up.
One of the videos I linked shows how to do that for both sweep and scull, I'm pretty sure.
once you do it, it makes sense. In a sculling boat, usually you've got enough flexibility to be able to reach as far as you possibly can. And it's itty bitty little taps. It's better to do like tap, 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 tap than big pull, because you're trying to slowly move it so that you're not pulling yourself out of the grip of the stake boat person. For the 1K specifically, you're not going to have like the floating start is going to be slightly different. The alignment might be slightly different. So they're going to tell you how far to back and alignment and things like that. So just be aware of that. Let's see, if it is windy, make sure that you overcorrect. So let's say it keeps pushing you to one side, instead of like getting yourself started or getting yourself straightened and then letting it go until you're 45 degrees off again. Keep yourself straightened, and specifically when you're getting close to actually starting the race, overcorrect, so that as they're saying Minneapolis, lane 1, Duluth, lane 2, you're not like floating all the way back again. You are overcorrected so that by the time they say it, you're straight. Okay, by the time they actually start it. So just be aware and think ahead there. Don't just react like in the moment. If you are still making a change or something, if you're a coxswain or even a bow, depending on what the change is, if you hold your hand up really high like you were in grade school, that signals to the official that you are not ready. Often if they're doing a quick start, they will not recognize hands, but if they've got a little bit of time, they'll give you a moment to get your stuff together. And so holding your hand up if you're not ready is super helpful. Once you have gotten your point and you're good to go, make sure your crew is relaxed, have them bury their blades, and then you have been practicing starts and you know what to do after that.
Yeah.
Any questions there? Okay. Sprint race steering. And do you want to cover this? We've talked about it a lot, but yeah, the big ones not to do and to do.
Right. Yeah. So again, unfortunately, at Duluth, we don't have a buoy line to help you hold your course. So as a coxswain, you're looking forward towards the horizon. On the 1K, you can see the finish line buoy. If you're at the 2K, you can't. So just sort of aim for, if I remember right, you're aiming for like the corner of the rowing club because you can see that. But if you are bowing, just do your absolute best to stay in line with your stake boat. And once you lose sight of your stake boat, then you have to start looking over your shoulder, just because it's a safety thing, like Colby was saying, and boats do tend to crisscross. It's not an issue if you do cross into another lane, as long as you are not either hitting or impeding another crew. And again, this is where assertively letting other boats know where you are is good. And it can get fairly aggressive and chaotic at points. So just know and understand that it is going to be loud and chaotic, and don't panic if somebody all of a sudden is yelling at you, whether it's another boat or an official. And that the officials, again, will have flags to direct you port or starboard. You do not have to wave a hand to acknowledge that because you're in the middle of your race. Just let your boat know, pressure on star, pressure on port, so that you can make the appropriate correction and timeliness. And again, if you are unable to make that change for whatever reason, you could potentially get a penalty. If you feel like you have been obstructed or impeded at any point in the race, when you are finished, after you have rowed through the finish line, raise your hand, and then our club will lodge a protest and physically write a check for it's like $75 and get that all taken care of. It's a very archaic process, despite the fact we're in 2023.
Yeah.
So,
and think about, like, are you willing to lose $75 over it?
Right.
Because
Also,
often, like, you launching a protest doesn't mean you're going to win.
Right.
So just be thoughtful. Like, is it worth that?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And again, with Duluth, there is definitely like lake wave effect, and you will get pushed towards the shore. So just keep that in mind, and you'll be able to feel that on your warm up. So if you can launch 30 minutes ahead of time, if you've never raced the course before, for your first race of the day, it might not be a bad idea to launch a little earlier, just so you can get a feel for what the water movement is like. Typically at Duluth, the later in the day you go, the gustier it is, the bigger the waves, the rougher the water. So if you have one of those like first 10 races, you're sitting pretty. It's the after lunch races where things can get a little bit more dicey.
Yeah.
So again, if you hear someone yelling, if an official is directing you somewhere, don't freak out. It's completely normal. In fact, expected on this race course.
Yeah. With the execution, hopefully you've got a race plan. You know what you're going to do there. Biggest thing is distance wise, there should be a buoy marking that halfway point and or the last 500 or 250, and I don't remember what, but they'll share that at the Cox's meeting. Make sure that they know, okay, we're at the halfway point or things like that, and don't lie to your crew. So if you're saying, okay, we're walking on so and so, don't lie to them. Or if you're doing the last 10 of a race, don't do last 10, just kidding, last 5, just kidding, 3 more. That really sucks when you're at the very end of a race. So make it a more conservative estimate versus an aggressive estimate, especially when it comes to calling the finish line and when it comes to spotting yourself off a different boat. And specifically, if you're doing a 2K, 2K is a lot longer than a 1K. And so if you're just calling power 10s throughout, that is not going to be effective because people are going to be tired. So make sure that you're using technique calls throughout, and make sure that you're thinking about what are the things that this boat or my coach who normally says to us, whether it's sit up, clean finishes, timing, whatever the boat needs, call focuses for that throughout. And then the finish, like Anne said, there's a big yellow triangle buoy that marks the finish, but based on where you are, you want to make sure that you're fully through that line. So always make sure that you go through the 3 strokes past the finish at full race pressure. You would hate to accidentally stop and then float through the finish line and have somebody beat you at the last second. And as soon as you finish, you have to keep rowing because there are races coming back right behind you and you're pretty close to the dock anyway. Make sure that you're taking it about 20-30 strokes before you take a breather to make sure that other boats can finish behind you, and then start to assess what order do I want to go into the recovery docks into.
So it's essentially a counterclockwise pattern, and we'll show the race course again. So you're going to launch with your bows pointed towards the start. You're going to race down. So you're going to be constantly either checking on port or checking on, oh my gosh, now I'm totally backward.
Port,
yep. And then, so you're going counterclockwise. So as you roll the finish, you're going to check it down port and then take a couple longer strokes on your starboard side. And then either by whole boat or half the boat rotating through will get you back to the dock. The good news is that the return dock is very close to the finish line. So you do not have to go far.
The bad news
is you can dock on both sides. So you be landing on a side that you're not familiar with. And if you can talk to the other crews to be like, if you want to take that, like if you want to take the boathouse side, I'll take the lake side. That is perfectly okay. Or just let the people on the dock know, I'm going to need a hand over here. So just
they'll help you.
Yes, they will help you. So don't be afraid to advocate for yourself and advocate for your boat on the landing dock.
Yes.
So I might have missed it. Oh, sorry, Colby. I might have missed it, but
good.
like once you go through the finish, like you're saying it's like 20 strokes on the paddle before you make your turn, or
it'll be more than that, but don't go through the finish and horn goes and then you stop. Don't just do that. You've got to keep going so that the race behind you can finish.
Yep,
Got it.
because
So
Alright.
you don't want to.
it's like one
stop
race
at the
every
finish.
4 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing is if you've got a full race, let's say 7 boats across, you got 7 boats ready to dock at the same time, and there's not much room in between here. So you're gonna have to communicate with each other and determine who is gonna go first. So make sure that you're talking to people. Okie dokie. And then once you dock, you are not done, because you have to get the boat back and you have to make sure that it's prepped for the next crew. So like we said before, it's helpful to walk before you have a boat in your hands from the recovery dock back to the trailer, so you know what path you're going to be able to take. And then when you are exiting, getting the boat out of the water, quick, and also prepare people that they might not have their shoes. Sometimes whoever you asked to get your shoes might not catch you, and they might not have the shoes, and it's okay. It's not ideal, but you might not have your shoes. Prepare people for that. When you get back to the trailer, be super careful. There are tons of boats everywhere. There's lots of people. Just be aware. And like Anne said, the regatta managers will tell you where to put the boat, whether it's on the trailer, things like that. If you're putting it on the trailer, usually we don't put rigged boats on the trailer because riggers don't line up with how the trailer is set up. So be careful so that when you set it down, you're not sitting on a rigger or on a backstay. And the regatta managers will help you with that as well. Just, it's not like the normal racks. The rack points aren't going to count, or not going to work when you set it on the trailer.
Correct.
If you are one of the last boats or last races of the day, and this is where like be prepared, you might be the last one racing it, which means you need to de-rig it. So you would put it in slings, de-rig it, make sure that the riggers get to the regatta manager, get loaded, get tied up, all of that stuff, and that you take care of that boat prior to you going back and getting a drink or a snack. Also, if that is your last race of the day, that does not mean you are done. We have to load the entire trailer, and we need lots of people to do that. We've got lots of 8s, we've got lots of 4s, we've got 2 entire trailers to load. So do not peace out if your last race is at 2 and great, I'm gonna have a great weekend. You signed up for the whole day, you're there for the whole day.
Yep.
And you help,
Last race
and
day is
especially
so
yeah, and they feed you at the end of it, and the food is usually pretty good. So
It is.
if you stay, you get dinner, and it goes way faster if we've got more hands. And if you don't know how to do something, just ask somebody, and this is a great race for us to teach you how to do that. Specifically, if you are tall, when the 8s are going up, we need your help in order to get those, because you need tall people in order to get it all the way up. Loading a trailer, if you were doing it today, you saw it a little bit different than how we normally carry boats. So just be very aware of whoever is calling that boat on or off the trailer. Make sure that you don't do anything until they say. Be aware of your body not falling off the trailer. Be aware of your fingers, and hopefully everything goes smoothly. Make sure that if you have a Cox box, you get that Cox box to the next person. They should be taking bow numbers. Either Duluth rowing or the regatta managers will be doing bow numbers, so you shouldn't have to worry about that. And then if this is a crew that you normally row with and you actually want to improve with them, go ahead after you're done with your boat, go over to the side and say, you know, what was really good? What do we want to improve? As a coxswain or as a bow, what did I do well? What can I improve on? Because that helps you as a boat and as a rower or cox or bow be able to improve and get feedback for next time. And then always, none of these regattas happen without the volunteers, officials, coaches, or helpers, friends and family, everybody. Just be thanking everybody all day, because they're the people that make this happen, and it wouldn't happen without them. So anytime you see somebody with a Duluth regatta shirt or someone helping at the docks, just be thanking people so that we get positive reinforcement and people keep volunteering and making these things happen.
Yep.
Any question about that before we get into specific things around Duluth? We're almost done, I
Yeah.
promise.
I know. I'm sorry to keep asking questions.
Oh, you're good. That's why we're
I
here.
never considered shoe people. So
Yes.
are there
Tim,
shoe
that's
people?
me.
Sweet.
For you guys, that's me. I got you.
Yeah.
Nailed it. Thank you.
I will make sure. I can't guarantee I'll have your shoes at the landing dock every time, but I will for sure guarantee you get the right oars that you need, and that I will get your shoes off the dock. Also, 4 pairs of shoes aren't going to make a huge amount of difference to the weight of your boat. So
Right.
there are occasionally times when it's just easier to dump your shoes in the footwell and row with them in the boat.
Yeah.
Got it.
Personally,
Then, you know,
that's
they're-
what I do.
And then another question, because you talked about dinner, like when would you expect everything to really be wrapped in Duluth that we would be able to get in our
6:30.
cars and head home?
6:30ish. I'm pretty sure the last race of the day is scheduled to start at like 5:10.
Mhm.
And then they don't start serving the barbecue until that last race is finished. And then they claim there's an award ceremony. It's
I've never
not that.
seen
I don't think I've ever actually seen it either. But yeah, so also because Jill Cooper is the lead regatta manager for this regatta, she will not give you your ticket for the barbecue until all of the boats are loaded on the trailer. So in order to leave, unless you don't care about eating, but again, I would recommend it. If you don't care, then around 5:30, but usually you're not hitting the road until closer to 6:30, even 7 sometimes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a long day.
Yep.
And the more helpful you can be at the end of the day, making sure that stuff is getting loaded and stuff is getting picked up, the faster it goes for it. So just because you're not on somebody else's team doesn't mean you can't help them out. Just like if I'm not on your team doesn't mean I can't help you out. So please be a helpful hand if you have energy to do so, because that helps it go smoother for everybody.
All right.
And Duluth specifically, if you didn't know, I mentioned it slightly earlier, make sure that you know the length of your race. We've got a lot of boats, and there are 3 categories: junior, open, and masters. Junior and open categories, this says these are minimum ages. For example, I am racing both of mine in open, and we are definitely way older than 26. Those are 2,000 meter races, which is not what I normally race. But that's what we got put in, and that's what we're going to race, right? So if you are a masters event and it says masters in the name of your event, you will be doing a 1,000. If it is open, you're doing a full 2,000. So don't stop. Like go the full 2,000, and it's gonna feel long because that's not normally what we do. And then as Anne was saying, depending on the wind and stuff, the morning of, as you see here, this course on the left is the normal race course that we use. If the wind is really bad or coming from the wrong direction, then there's an optional course on the other side. So they will announce that the morning of. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything will be good, and we'll use the normal course.
In the 8 years I've been a member of this club, and the 7 years that, well, 6, because there was no racing the first year of COVID, I have only ever raced on the Lake Superior side once. Every other time has been harbor side. They really, really try to keep us in the harbor. But yeah, it's a day of decision, so just be flexible and be willing to go with it. If we were to be on the Lake Superior side, we are racing then clockwise.
Yes. And the lanes are reversed on this one, which is like the only time they would ever be reversed. That is not normal.
No.
Okay, well, that's all we've got. We've got follow-up resources here as well. If you are interested, I'll share the link in the chat if you want to save that and refer to it. But that is all we've got. Any other questions before we let you get to bed?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, good luck.
Just a
out
just a
there.
quick, this was
Oh.
great.
Yeah.
Thanks. This is Yvonne. Just a quick question. When do you think you'll be getting the recording out? Because I know people wanted to join this tonight, but couldn't.
That has to upload and then Jen gets it, right?
Yeah, Jen. So even though we're hosting this meeting, Jen is ultimately has like the publication results. I know she'll do her best to get it up as soon as she can. Hopefully it'll be up before the end of the day tomorrow. As
Yeah.
soon as it is uploaded, either Colby or I will send out the thing to everybody who has signed up in iCrew so you can see it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Good luck. Ann and I will both be there. Ann's one of the regatta managers in the morning. I will definitely be there in the afternoon. So if you have any questions, just let us know and best of luck.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
You're
Thank you.
It'll be great. Good luck.
Thank
We'll see
you.
you on Friday.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.